Live stream.
Okay, recording is going.
Live stream.
Okay, recording is going. Let me mute this stream and Twitch. Okay. How's the audio?
Sounds great here. I'm just hearing it through Slack though.
Oh yeah, okay. You probably have to have the stream muted too, don't you?
Yeah.
Good thinking. Well, let's give it a minute to see if people want to join, and then we will get rocking.
Sounds good.
We will get rocking.
Sounds good.
What's up, Pumba? Wonder how many people are coming to this thing. 5 had RSVP'd to the or to the Discord event, but one of those was me. So So, G, have you ever made an enemy like start to finish with Anvil?
It was a long time ago, but yeah.
I haven't done it for a minute, and I don't know that any of our modders have totally done it yet, so we may hit some snags along the way, but that's great because that's what this is trying to answer is where are the hiccups? I think the modders have done a really good job at letting us know that the hurdles they run into, but I think for us to see the hurdles ourselves is going to be really clutch to fixing these issues.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, I'm just going to kind of start from the top. So I cheated a little bit and I already have a mod project cooking just so we don't have to wait for that initial Unity load of a new project. But in the name of leaving a record about how to do this for people to follow along in the future, I'm just going to do it. So, first thing you want to do in your Steam library, you're going to see UnderMine 2 and you're going to see a tool called UnderMine 2 Anvil. I'm running on the developer version of things. You won't see this developer word next to yours. But you should still see both of these apps if you own UnderMine 2. So Anvil is just this simple little launcher here that lets you install Unity, make sure you're on the right version. These green check marks will let you know that everything's good to go. It has a link out to our documentation and it has the ability to make a new mod project on your disk. I've already done this step and preloaded things just so we don't have to wait for like 10 minutes for Unity to load that first project. But that's all there really is to the Anvil app itself. Everything else is going to be contained in this folder that Anvil creates for you. So once you've done that, what you need to do is launch Unity Hub. This is that first step in the Anvil toolchain. And you need to go browse for that project that you just made. You're going to have to browse on your disk and go find that project. I've already done that. And you can see that this Captain mod is set up here. And that we're going to launch with this version of Unity. So this is newer than the version of Unity that is currently live in production on Steam. And that's just because Unity had shipped some really bad security exploit that we had to patch. So this will be going out this is actually already on the test branch for Anvil, but not on the main branch. So it'll be moved to the main branch once we ship the zero point 0.5 update. Anyway, that's kind of getting into the weeds a little bit. I'm just going to load up this project and we'll get started on making a new enemy for UnderMine 2, and I'm going to put him in the dungeons and just show kind of end to end how that process works. We can spawn him, we can tweak his behavior, we can get him like we want him, and then I think ultimately I'm going to copy him over to the base game just so that everybody can play with this guy. But for now, we're going to develop him as a mod. And the reason that works very seamlessly for us is that this is the same tool set we use to develop the game. We use Unity. We have pretty much exactly the same pipeline. So we'll be able to just take these modded files and then copy them into the base game project and have our new enemy all good to go. So that all sound good, G?
Yeah, perfect.
So I guess just to back up a little bit as an introduction, I'm Derek. I'm the lead developer on UnderMine 2. And joining me today is Alex. He's kind of our mod guru. He helped build a lot of these mod tools and does like a lot of backend and server stuff for us. Helps get our build server set up and helps people with bug reports and just manages the whole process. So we're gonna be trying to make this mod together. Like I said earlier, we may hit some snags, but we will work through those. And if we need to like live patch something, we can probably even do that too. This whole system's really flexible for getting what we need in. Okay, so we've got a blank Unity project here. It sets you up with this mod data object. This is sort of where you fill out a lot of the properties about what Steam is going to read from. So when you go to publish your mod from Steam from this mod dashboard, it's going to take a lot of these fields and push them out to Steam. So you kind of want to keep these updated. So I'm going to name this mod something like the Captain mod, because the new enemy we're going to be adding is a captain. He's like an upgraded version of the footman. I'll show you what his sprites look like pretty soon. Our artist Cortland made these sprites some months ago, but we just have not had the time to actually implement him in the game. So I figured this would be a good time to take a little break, put him in the game as a mod just to show how that process works, but we can actually use the awesome looking sprites that he made. Then you fill out a description. How about I'm the captain now? Adds a new captain enemy to the dungeons. Okay, so probably one of the first places you want to start is from the data wizard, I'm going to say. This lets us copy existing data structures like enemies or items or encounters, but it also just lets you make new ones from scratch. There's a lot of pieces in an enemy, so I'm just going to start by copying an existing enemy that I know is pretty similar to this guy. So the captain is kind of like the footman. He's a big armored dude. He has a sword and a shield. And in my mind, he's going to have very similar behavior to the footman. He's going to chase you down. He's going to hit you with his sword. We're going to give him an additional ability where he like bangs his sword and shield together to buff things around him. What's up, Apnea? Thanks for joining. But so yeah, let's. It's always a good idea to start with, if possible, if there's already an enemy in the game that you know is a good like chassis to build on, you should always start from that. So I'm going to fill out this copy from existing field with the footman. I should be able to browse for the core, the base game footman. There he is. And I'm going to name this guy Captain. Okay, this is a little tricky. So now's a good opportunity for me to import his. Actually, no. Let me make this guy first, and then I'll import the sprites. But we need to give him a name, and this is going to take us on a little detour here, because to set up loc strings, loc stands for, is short for localization. You need to kind of establish this other set of files that holds those strings in different languages. So we're going to create a new English loc object, and we're not going to copy from an existing one. We're going to create a brand new one that will contain the English strings just for our mod. So clicking that create button back on that other screen is going to open up this window, which now has done it. Now we have a loc object in our mod project, and I'll show you that in the project viewer. So if I go back here and I go into data, I have a loc data English. They all have Canadian flag, but they're all, this just represents a loc object that you can fill out with strings that then the game can reference internally. It's a whole thing. I don't want to get too in the weeds there, but that is a necessary step if you ever want to name an enemy or an item or anything. Okay, so now we're back into our captain creation wizard here, and now that we have that loc object created, I can add strings to it right here. So I want to call this guy captain, and I can click this quick add button, which will add it to that loc object that we just made, and now it's available to reference in any of these like loc fields here. Might as well do the same thing with his description. Let's say something like a burly warrior who buffs other enemies. I can quick add that and then select it for my description of the captain. Okay, and that's pretty much all I need for copying the footman into a new enemy template, or into a new enemy set of data objects. And now I hit create. And here we go. So it's created a lot of different data objects that we will go through one at a time, but all of these are necessary. Most of these are like animation data stuff. So these are all the same class of stuff. We have the captain data object itself, and then we have a behavior that it points to. So if at any time anybody has any questions, you included, Alex, I'm watching chat, so feel free to ask. I figure we'll spend like maybe half hour, 45 minutes making the footman or making the captain and getting him like we want him, and then I want to spend time on Q&A. So if any modders out there have specific questions about their mod that you're making, just ask away, and Alex and I can help you debug that stuff in real time. Because I'd also like to use this as an opportunity for us to understand more the hurdles that modders are encountering, what features you guys want to see in Anvil, and uh, and then use that to develop a list of things that we need to be working on to give the modders and the mod community. Okay, do you have to create the lokes before you create the enemy? That loke setup is kind of a one-time thing. So now once I have that new English loke data object in my project, I can just continue to add to that same object. So whenever I see a loke field in any of the new data I'm making, I can just use this little quick add feature to add new strings dynamically. So that first time setup is really the most painful. And no, they don't necessarily have to be before I make the enemy. They can be done at any time. It's just that if I were to spawn this enemy and try to see what his name is without loke, it'll just say missing loke, or it'll be like, empty string, and won't be able to tell me what he actually is. Okay. Yes, so if it's a different language, you do need a new loke data object per language. And loke data objects kind of come in two flavors. They're either a full translation, which means they're an entirely new set of strings that don't exist in the base game, or you can do what's called a translation patch, which replaces loke objects in the base loke one. So this was the idea that like if people were really unhappy with our French translation or whatever language it is, it's a big struggle for us to understand the quality of our loke since we don't speak those languages. We just have to trust that our localizers are doing a good job. But if the community ever wanted to rally together and make like a replacement French translation to go in and replace all the base French strings with like updated loke that they thought was more accurate, that's the opportunity to do that. I don't think any modders have done this yet, but that functionality exists there, and I think it's powerful. I mean, it could like really make the game a lot better, a lot more readable for certain languages that we didn't get totally correct on our first pass. And additionally, like you could make a patch that adds a full new language to the game. All you have to do is do full translation, and then it's a lot of work right now, but you'd have to go add every single loc ID that exists in the base game and then translate them into Turkish or whatever, some language that we haven't supported internally. That's totally possible with this system too. And then players in Turkey could go and install this mod, and suddenly the entire game would be in Turkish, and that would be very cool to see, but we'll see if we get there. Okay, so we've got our captain data object. So now we're just going to go start building the enemy. He comes with a certain amount of fields already filled out. He's already on team enemy. We can kind of go through these modules. The ones that I mean, there's so many modules now, it's hard to talk about all of them, but I'll hit up the big ones that we're going to need to talk about. And if anybody has any questions about specific modules or fields of what they do, this is a great time to ask those. We've had this very long running ambitious project to go write documentation for each one of these fields, either out on the web. Some of them have these little question marks next to them that you can click and get a little more information in. That's a lot of work for us to go fill out all this stuff though, because there's so many of them. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory, but there's a lot that are like really fiddly and hard to understand. So if you're struggling with any of these in your mods, please ask away. Maybe wait till the Q&A, we can go over those specifically, but yeah, happy to answer any questions about what the modules of the data objects do, because that's really where the functionality of the game happens, is in the fields of these modules. Yes, so green means that you have overridden the base module. So every enemy data object comes with a set of default modules, And if it's blue, it means it's just getting the defaults. If you want to like provide your own carry module, for example, you hit this little plus button and it'll turn it green, and then it'll enable it for editing. So now you can go override stuff that the base provided to you. But if you just are happy with the base or you don't need carry module is a good example. There's a carrying system like where pilfers carry gold on top of their head when they come pick it up. So you have to specify the pilfer's carry module if you want to like set the offset of the payload, like how far above his head he carries it. Otherwise, he's just going to get the default. But the captain's really not going to carry anything. He's not going to pick anybody up like a throwbow. Throwbow picks stuff up, so he has to have a carry module. So we're just going to leave his carry module at the defaults because he's not going to use that part of the functionality. So whatever, that can just stay blue. But I think it's a good point to make is that just because it's blue, it still has stuff in it. You are still getting the values that you see here. It's not like the module is completely activated. You are just agreeing to be cool with the defaults that you get. But if you want to override them, just click the plus there. Okay, so we've got a really good base for our captain, but what I want to do now is go and give him his sprites. So that wizard created this textures enemies captains folder for me, and it populated a bunch of his animations with like this little default sprite guy that we drew up. Kind of programmer art. It's pretty ugly. I'd like to replace that at some point. But for now, we're going to immediately go replace his animations with those sprites that I was telling you that Cortland made again. Hey, 82's here. Hey, designer. How's it going? We are humming along making this captain enemy. So on my other monitor here, I'm just going to drag in a bunch of captain sprites, and those will import them into my project as sprite sheets. But, and this is like some real basic Unity knowledge that you'll eventually get really good at. Maybe you already know it if you've used Unity a lot. We have to cut these sprite sheets up. So these are just big textures right now. All of these frames of animation exist in the same texture, but we're going to tell Unity where the boundaries are and differentiate one from the next. So this is you might have to scrub back and forth in the VOD to really see what's going on here. I'm just going to kind of fly through this too much because this isn't really about Anvil. This is more about basic Unity knowledge, how to cut up sprite sheets. So the first thing I need to do is set their sprite modes to multiple, and I can do that all at once by selecting them all at once and then hit apply. And now I get this sprite editor window, and I don't know, Unity has some bugs in it that makes this dialog come up first. Anyway, so now I can start slicing this sprite up, and I'm going to go up to slice, grid by cell count, and I'm going to make sure that he is a 4 by 3, and then hit slice. So now you can tell that it's given me 11 different sprites of this captain's attack animation. I hit apply, and boom. Now, instead of just one texture, Unity's going to see 11 different textures, each which is a different frame of his animation. So now we can refer to these sub-sprites independently of each other. The sizes of the sprites do not matter. It's really best if they are all the same size and that like the contents of it are centered as well as possible, or all in the same position within the frame. Otherwise you're gonna have like really jumpy animation. He's gonna be jumping all around. You can see that as I move through these frames, he's kind of staying in the same position, which is exactly what you want. So yeah, they can be as big as you want or as small, but they don't have to be like powers of 2 or multiples of 4 or anything like that. We've taken care of all that on the back end. But there are some more considerations here that we'll get to in a minute. So, okay. Am I up to date on all the questions? Hey, Cortland's here too. Cortland drew these sprites, so I'm sure he's really happy to finally see them getting put to use. All right, so I have three more sprites to cut up. I'm just going to blast through these. So this is just a 5 by 1. Hit slice and apply. And then this idle is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 by 1. And apply. And this guy is a 6 by 1. Uh, apnea. If you, it doesn't really matter. So it doesn't matter if all the sprites are in one big sheet or if they're in multiple sheets. Like you could have each one of these as individual sprites inside your project. You know, how many frames are we talking about here? 11 and 4. I mean, like 20, 30 frames. You could have like 30 objects here, 30 individual textures. That's no problem because when the game actually gets built, um, well, I take this back. When the core game gets built, all of these sprites get packed into like really massive textures, like 4,000 by 4,000, and that all of the packing, you know, it loses all the information about where they originally existed on disk. That's not as true for mods. They are shipped as individual textures for mods, but it doesn't really matter. It's really just whatever you prefer. I think it's a lot easier to deal with fewer files in Unity, so and kind of to group them conceptually, like here's his attack sheet, here's his secondary attack sheet. But if you don't want to go through the effort of like stitching all these together in Photoshop, you certainly don't have to. You can keep them as individual textures within Unity and things will work just fine. You won't notice any difference in performance or anything like that. Okay, so now that we've got everything cut up, we have to start plugging them into these animation objects. So pay attention to little icons here pretty closely. These little green triangles are individual animations, and then this little green sphere is what lumps them all together and sticks them in their animation buckets or slots, I guess is another way to talk about it. So we have idle slots, we have walk slots, we have attack one. Uh, all these are predefined. You can't add new slots because the engine has to manage these very carefully. So it can't compensate for new slots, but these are the supported slots right now, and there's enough of them to make kind of anything you could imagine. I think we've made a huge amount of stuff just with these slots. Okay, so anyway, let's just work on what the copier gave us here. We have two idle slots, one for east facing, one for west facing. Uh, let's talk about that for a little bit. It's just a slight detour on facings. Most of our enemies in UnderMine, they flip east and west. They don't face south. They don't face north. They don't do any of the, omni, or what are they called? Ordinal directions, whatever. The player is kind of the big exception to this because, as you all know, the player can face directly north, directly south, east, and west. But just to make life a lot easier for us, we've gone with east-west for our enemies, because that really lets us just sort of mirror east and west, which is great. Yeah, exactly. Pumba. Cardinal directions are what the player does. East-west is what enemies do, and we can just flip their sprite east to west and get really good results a lot faster than trying to support all these animation slots. So anyway, you have to tell the animator what mode it operates in. And then if you are in east-west, you have to make sure that you have an east and west version of each one of your animations. You don't have to have new east-facing or west-facing sprites. You can set this little flip X flag to flip the sprite around for you if you want the west version. So as we can tell, by default, the captain is facing east. So his attack, his setup here is that the east version does not flip because that's his default state, and all the west versions do flip. So you have to pay very close attention to these flip flags. Okay, so back to just defining this guy. I'm gonna just start dragging in his sprites here and replacing these default sprites such that we can get a pretty good result. Actually, here, I'm just gonna clear them all. You can left click to clear, and then you can drag the whole sheet in at once, and it'll automatically create the entire set of animation for you. And if you drag this window up here, you can preview it. You can kind of see what he's going to look like at 8 frames a second or something like that. So let's just go ahead and do that same thing. Oh yeah, we have to do one critical thing here. You have to define the frames in which his hit happens. So there's this whole other field here of events that the animation system will fire when it gets to this frame. So we want to fire 2 specially named events. We want to do a hit event, and confusingly we want to do a hit underscore 1 event. These are not that well named, but I'll explain what these are later. These tie back into his behavior and tell him when like the damage actually comes out. Okay, now let's fill out his idle. And again, I'm just going to nuke what's there, and I'm going to drag in his idle animation. And that's what it looks like, looking really good. Idle does not have any animation events that it fires, like nothing cares about him idling. And then we're going to do walk. So same idea. Walk doesn't like tie into any behavior systems, so we don't need to fire any events from walking. He's just going to walk around. All right. And I'm actually going to delete this texture since we don't use this one anymore, the default one. It's always really good to stay on top of your file management and just keep things as clean and as minimal as you can, because things really get out of control otherwise. I mean, we've done that. We've kept our project super duper clean, and it still has like 60,000 files in it or something. So it's a lot to manage. Okay, so let's go back to the enemy data himself. Again, you're going to get really good at like recognizing the icons for these data objects. Not all of them have icons, but like the key ones do. And you'll start to notice that like, oh, bomb pilfer represents the enemy. Green sphere is animation. Green triangle is animation clip. You'll kind of learn the names of these data types. So the way that the captain references all those animations that we just made is then in his animation module, he has a reference to animation data. Whoops. No, he doesn't. What happened there? Animation data captain. Oh, interesting. So it looks like the base game already has a captain defined. Maybe he's just not hooked up. Well, I know he's not hooked up, but maybe he does exist in the game file. So the star, if you're in the little data browser here, anything with a star next to it is core data, and anything without the star is like a local. This is your own animation data. Okay, yeah. He is in the remote console and he is in the game. You're right. I should have checked that before we did this. Anyway, doesn't matter. He's not used. I don't think he even has a behavior, so that's the big part of implementing an enemy, is getting his behavior up and running. Or if he does have one, it's probably just the footman behavior. Sorry, Abner, do we have a legend somewhere for all that? Oh, for the icons? No. That would be something good for us to document later, maybe out on the Confluence page, but I think you're just going to have to learn by doing. It'll become muscle memory. Okay, he's got the footman behavior right now. All right, so that's a good starting point. He currently is going to have the footman behavior now too, because we copied this behavior from the footman behavior. So he'll act a lot like a footman now. But he should look like a captain. I hope. Okay. Oh yeah, another good thing. So now that we have his sprites imported, we need to give him one of those sprites for his icon. So this is so like you can see him in the remote console. Yeah, every bit of data usually needs like 3 very key pieces of information. One is the icon, one is the display name, and one is a description. So let's browse for his like first frame of his idle animation and give him that as his icon. Great question, Apnea. Are there any issues with the fact that this dude's name is the same? I hope not. We've gone to great lengths to make sure that the names of these data objects are arbitrary and irrelevant to the engine. There are some very key bits of data that you have to have unique across all things. Like one of them, for example, is this GUID field. If this GUID field had the same GUID as something in the core game, that would certainly be a problem. But I think we're probably good in terms of the names of the data. The fact that there already is a captain in the base game really shouldn't matter. And if it does, we're about to learn about that and we'll have to go fix it. Okay, so I'm going to call this guy pretty good. Like, yes, he has a ton of modules that we haven't talked about, but we know that he's based on the footman. So I'm going to guess that if we go into test mode right now and spawn us a captain, he's going to be kind of reasonable. I can predict a few issues he's going to have, which I will go fix just for the tutorial aspect of it, but let's see what happens. Okay, so to test your mod, always keep this mod dashboard up. When you first open your mod project, it's going to be undocked. It's going to be just floating around. You're going to want to dock it somewhere very handy so you can always have access to specifically this big green test mod button. So let's see what happens. Oh my god, yes, we've tried to get rid of this dialogue so many times. This is some weird Unity thing. But that just... okay, sure. You have to kind of save the scene it's open to, otherwise Unity doesn't. Let's just save this as sample scene. Otherwise Unity won't let you proceed into test mode. There's still a few kind of, yeah, a little rough edges, but these are sort of one-time things. Once you get into the flow of testing your mod and making, making changes to your data objects, a lot of those first-time setup issues you'll never see again. I hope. But again, if you guys are having like annoyances with Anvil or like the same thing you have to click over and over or like just really confusing stuff, please let us know and we will try to get it addressed because we're trying to. Okay, yeah, so you guys see it too, huh? It does come up for us. Do you have any idea why that is? Haven't we tried to fix that dialogue?
Yeah, I just can't find the setting for it. It's stored somewhere totally different from all our other settings. So
Is it
if
like
anyone
buried?
does find it, let me know.
Yeah, it's probably buried deep in the registry or something weird that we're gonna have to hack. But okay, so testing your mod is going to launch the game. Hopefully, you guys are seeing UnderMine 2 launching just like I am. This launches whatever version you have synced to Steam, launches it as if it was launched through Steam, and puts you into a practice mode. Anybody who's made a mod already knows this stuff, but okay, so here's where you guys are going to get really jealous. I'm running the developer build of UnderMine 2, and it has this really amazing tool built in where I can just open this awesome cheat menu inside the game with tilde. I know you guys are having to suffer with the remote console in Anvil, which is kind of the same, but it's just not as usable because it's not built right into the game. We're trying to fix that. We're trying to improve remote console. It's very hard to find a good way to ship this cheat menu just to modders. If we ship it, everybody's going to have it, and we obviously don't want that. So anyway, I'm going to be using this thing today. You guys can be jealous. The more jealous you are, the more motivated we will probably be to fix this or to make this better. Anyway, we're going to run this test. Am I going to see a captain somewhere on this list here? Yeah, okay, so I see two captains. There's the base, one of them is the base captain and the other one is our modded captain, and I actually don't know which is which. So let's go fix that before I try to spawn this guy, because I want to make sure I'm working with the right captain. So I'm going to do two things. I'm going to rename his data object. I know I just said that the names don't matter, but I think that cheat menu might actually use his data object name. I take it back. But I'm also going to go change his display name just in case. I just can't remember which of these strings the cheat menu uses. I want to hover over him and see the word mod captain. Okay, so I can do two things here. I can go into the loc database directly, and I can just change it right here. I'm going to call him mod captain. All right, so now if I go back to his enemy data object, I should now see that his name is mod captain. Okay, so both of these I think are in a good state now, so we'll be able to distinguish the base captain from the mod captain on the cheat menu. Okay, are you able to spawn props in a similar way in test mode? No, so we don't have a good way of dynamically spawning props currently. I can talk about that after I'm done with the captain here. I think we can take a quick walk through the encounter maker, because that, if you've played around with the tile set system, you can add your own props to that very easily, and you can paint them into your own test encounter to try them out. There's no way to dynamically spawn them currently. We just have never had a use case for spawning props dynamically. I mean, there are a couple curses and items in the game that do it, but it's just not as useful as being able to spawn items and enemies. So anyway, we'll talk about that when we get to encounter creation. Yes, I can work. I can certainly work with the remote console. It's just going to be off screen. I don't know. Well, let's see how it goes. You really, life is a lot better if you have two monitors, because you can keep the remote console on one monitor. You can keep the game in test mode on another. Anyway, let's run test mod and see what we get. They are effectively equivalent. There's a few like really niche things in the in-game one that you can't do through the remote console. I can give you a little tour of it, but the most used stuff I believe are in the remote console. Okay, here we go. Do we have a mod captain? Nope. Our mod captain is gone. What's going on here, G? Where is he?
Might be sorted differently. If you just type, yeah, I think I see
Oh,
him
yeah,
down
yeah.
there.
Do you see him?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So it must
perfect.
be sorted by their mod, like the
Okay.
data name.
So, what we're seeing here is his display name because I put an underscore in his data name. Yep, you're exactly right. So where are the ins? Here he is. Mod captain. There he is. Does he do anything right now? Oh man, yes, he sort of does some stuff. Okay, we're gonna go take a look at all this stuff. So right off the bat, uh, his swipe is the wrong direction. I don't think he has any move speed stat because he's unable to like close the distance to me. So his move speed is probably 0. His stats are probably just all messed up because we're not. Oh, I guess he does have a little bit of reach because he is able to connect with me. So let's go improve this guy. But this is a great start. We've got a captain in the game, and he's swinging on us. So he's got some behavior running. Very cool. I'm going to Alt F4 and then get back into Anvil. Okay, so, all right, let's take another detour. This is a painful one, but we're gonna have to go pivot his sprites better. And pivoting is a really difficult to understand concept initially. It's one we have to deal with on a daily basis. But I'll just give a really brief overview on it, and then we can talk about it in more detail if you guys want. But each one of these sprites has this little blue donut that you can move around in it. And this moves the sprite in the world when you're actually rendering the sprite in the world. If you want to render it, let's say right at the origin, like at 0, 0, 0 in the world, and the origin is basically wherever this donut is going to be. If you spawn him at 0, 0, 0, and the donut's over here, he's going to appear to the right of the origin. But if the donut's over here, he's going to appear to the left of the origin. Essentially, this just offsets him relative to where you spawn him. So his sprite, I mean, you can move this way over here, in fact. Like, I could put this way the heck over here, and you're going to see him super far to the left of where you think he is in the world. It's confusing to get your head around. But, yeah, there you go, Pumbo. You've gotten into pivots. So, no, it doesn't affect the hitbox. It affects nothing other than where he visually appears. It's only his sprite. It's not his collider. It's nothing else about him. It's just where his sprite will appear relative to where the game thinks he is positioned, right? Once you start playing around with pivots, you'll pretty quickly see how they operate. But one thing we need to do for most of our humanoids is like move their pivot down around, like between their legs, down by their knees or by their belt buckle, because we want him to appear like he's standing on the ground. So he needs to be a little bit up. He needs to be a little bit north of the ground. So a quick way to do this, and I should have done this first, but I wanted to come back to it just once we saw the problem. You can set this on the slicer. So I'm going to say I want all the pivots for all of these sprites to be at half on the x-axis and then like 0.3 on the y-axis. So there. This is halfway across the sprite in the x direction, and it's like 30% of the way up from the bottom. Previously, it was like right in the middle of his chest at 0.5, 0.5, but now it's at 0.5, 0.3, if that makes sense. And this is going to give way better results visually. He's going to be like standing on even ground with you. He's just going to be up off the ground, standing in the middle of his shadow. I promise he'll look a lot better. But we need to go pivot all of these sprites in the same manner. So this was a 5x1 at 0.5, 0.3. Idle was a 9x1 at 5.5.3, and walk is a 6x1. Okay, that's done. So now that we've done that, I want to go change his shadow to compensate for this. So yes, it doesn't matter if it's in a sprite sheet or not. You still have to go set the pivot. Sprites in a sprite sheet. So once you slice up a sprite sheet and you get all these little sub objects, these are essentially the same as just having a single sprite hanging out at the base level. You have to go set the pivots, the import settings, all that kind of stuff for each one of those, regardless of whether they're packed or not. Unity sees them as the same object. Yeah, it takes a very long time to understand Unity sprite system, but it's very powerful. Once you do, you can do a lot of stuff with it. Okay, so let's go back to our captain and let's go down to his shadow module. I want to show you how this works. Shadows, the the game just, you can't even tell what's going on without shadows. The game feels so flat and 2D without shadows. They're very, very, very critical. So a good part of a successful enemy is certainly his shadow, where he sits within it. You can click this edit shadow button and oh, this might not actually work in mods. Has anybody tried this? Gee, have you tried this?
It's been a while.
Yeah, we may have to make a note of this one. This is meant to be this little tool to like help you move his shadow around, but I don't see the preview working correctly here. So, and my error log is just getting spammed. Okay, that's good to know. I hadn't been tracking that didn't work. There's a couple other such editors like the perimeter editor and other stuff like that. All it really does is like help you manually set these values just so you can like visually see. Okay, so colliders work, but shadows don't. That's good. That's good to know. So it's not like something fundamentally broken. Anyway, I'm just going to sort of wing it. I'm going to say he's got a 0.6. Like his shadow is 0.6 in a radius and the x-axis, and then if you keep this preserve aspect ratio clicked, it'll automatically figure out the other one for you. Let's lower it just a little bit. Okay, let's see what our Boyo looks like too. Okay, while I'm in here, I'm going to give him some move speed too. Oh, this... G, are you on notes, by the way? Can you write
Yeah,
down
I'm
some of
taking
these
them.
weird issues? Looks like our little
Yeah.
operator renderer is kind of screwed up here. That could be easier to read. Okay. I think another issue going on, the reason he has 0 speed right now is that it's trying to look up the average category. This is a big system that allows us to like increase enemy stats as you go further and further into the run. So for example, average in the Sanctum is probably a lot higher than average in the Mine. So if you spawn a footman or a captain in the Sanctum, he's going to be tougher. He's going to move faster, he's going to hit harder, he's going to have more hit points by virtue of this like category lookup. So maybe this is another good thing to take a note of, G, is the categories are not working in the test zone. Like we just need to go add some stat categories to that test zone that you go into when you
Okay.
click test mod. So to get around that for now, I'm just going to like hard code his speed. I'm going to set it directly to a value that will never change through that system. And I'm going to give him like, I don't know, 8? Something like that. Huh, okay, categories did work for you. Well, oh yeah, so some categories were working. Like his strength is a category, isn't it? Yeah, he's got high strength, and when he hit me, he did like 25 damage. So, what's up with speed? I don't know. Let's see if this fixes it. It may be a deeper problem than this. We'll go find out. Hopefully he's able to run at me now. But if not, we'll debug. Sub-behaviors are the problem. What do you mean? Oh, I see what you mean. Right. Okay, did you know this, G?
I think we had a report of that. Yeah, I'm wondering what behavior tree it actually copied over there.
Okay, let's go look at his behavior. So, yeah, I can see an issue there because the subtree action that we ship is, it comes built into into the behavior tool. We did not write it ourselves. And you cannot reference other objects unless you're using our own system. Yeah, it has a null because it doesn't go through our asset service to find the reference to the behavior that it's trying to reference. Okay, great to know. That's a pretty big deal that I would love to get resolved. Although it is pretty hard to resolve. So I'm going to move him back to average and assume that that lookup is working. And we're gonna go manually copy his behavior, or manually fix his behavior. So Apnea, is there a way to look at zone categories? Probably. I bet if you go to the data browser, let's go look at some floor data. Um, yeah, so yeah, I think that's exactly what I'm going to do, Pumba. I'm going to go in and copy the base behavior fully so that there's no sub behaviors involved. Like it'll be all implemented in the captain's own tree. Not to get too far afield of our goal to make this captain, but the data browser is also an extremely powerful tool if you haven't dipped into it yet. It lets you inspect pretty much every base data object. And yeah, this is probably pretty overwhelming for the wiki. But if you want to know how anything works, my God, the data browser is a really good place to start that process. So just to like really quickly go see if we can see those zone categories. Let me see if I can even remember. There's these stat maps. So here's the enemy stat map. So if we go to stat list enemy 3, we're on the first floor of the archive here. What are enemies doing? Whoops. Enemy 3. I wish we could jump around by just clicking on these. That would be pretty powerful. But here's stat list enemy 3. So for example, an average, what was he? High, average, I can't remember. Average strength is 28. So yeah, you can definitely go look at what the base stat values are. Yeah. I'm sure you're asking because of the wiki. If you ever want the wiki to be like fully comprehensive, this is probably one of those steps that's going to take a long time. Okay, anyway, yeah, data browser very strong. We will continue to improve it hopefully so you can like jump around in it easier. All right, so now let's go look at the you should keep the data browser page open and interact with the mod page. You mean the wiki mod page? What mod page do you mean? We could maybe make that data browser like pinnable or something. Excuse me, I have to cough. Okay, let's go look at behaviors. Yep, here we go. Subtree behavior null. Couple of them. I see. I can't. You can't keep the data browser open, huh? All right, we will check that out. Because I agree, having that browser open and like not resetting its view or anything like that is really, really powerful. No, I don't think you can open multiple data browsers at the moment, unless there's a way to like lock them. These little lock icons on some of these views sort of stick the view to that, so maybe you can dock the data browser and you'll get a lock. Yeah, play around with that. I don't want to go too astray digging into that, but that is a good feature to have. Okay, we're going to just here. Don't mind me, but I'm gonna dip over to the main core project, and I'm gonna go find the footman's behavior here, and I'm just gonna see what this wander walk does. Okay, give me just a sec to really think about this. Wait, is there a way that I can look this up in the data browser directly?
You'll have to go to the behavior tree browser, but I think you should be able to
Can I
copy and paste out
copy?
of there, hopefully. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God, this is beautiful. How come this one works, but
Yeah, great
the other
question.
one doesn't? Okay, I'm gonna copy this into. All right, all right, all right, all right. I got an idea. I'm gonna copy this into a fully new behavior that then we can reference as a sub behavior. I think. Is that gonna work? So we're gonna call. Oh, this is gonna be brutal. I'm just gonna dupe this guy. We're gonna call him subtree walk.
So out of curiosity, does it work to just reassign the sub behavior? Like, is it just a matter of copying over that pointer?
See,
Because we should be able to refer to that. Oh, go ahead.
the problem is that this is not our asset reference field. This is just a raw behavior tree reference because this is not our node, right? So
Oh, so we can't even point it to a core thing.
we cannot point this field to a core thing. So I think to fix this issue, we're gonna have to go implement our own sub behavior tree node that takes a asset reference to a behavior tree rather than just a raw reference.
Gotcha.
But what I can do is I can make my own subtree walk with the copied stuff from the behavior tree browser. This is kind of weird. Delete some of the stuff in here, and then what do we need? A position. Promote that to a variable. Oof, how come this is not working? Is that just gonna work? I'm a little bit worried that this tree does not have... I don't know, let's just see what happens. Okay, so now I can point, I just made a new local subtree walk. I can point this subtree to that, and I think this is gonna work. As long as that like global variable looked up. Do you know if this is gonna work, Alex?
I do not, but it sounds like Pumbaa does. I think that simulation entities, yeah, it just shows up as invalid sometimes.
Okay, but that should get resolved once the game is running.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, then what I'm gonna do is go also copy subtree chase until within range walk. Boy, these get complicated. So back to the behavior tree browser, chase until within range walk. Yeah, we're gonna copy this guy into a new subtree. We're just gonna call it chase. Delete all this stuff, paste that in, and then point the captain to that thing for this tree. So if it wasn't clear, I know it's not clear, it's very confusing. Subtrees are just sort of a way to share very similar behavior among lots of different enemies. So this is really, here, I should actually rename this. This is just like wander. So how we read this tree here, let me pull up chat again in case I'm missing anything. The footman's or the captain's tree basically says, try to use my attack ability, like find the targets for my attack ability, pick a random one of those targets, and then, this is a cute detail, say some stuff. You notice that the footmen's are like, halt or stop or, whatever. Get on the ground, stop resisting. This is what this little tree does here. So you can sort of ignore this. This is just for flavor. But then we're going to chase that target. We're going to try to get within melee range of it. And then we're going to, once we're in melee range of it, we're going to attack it. So, and then once that's done, or if we can't attack, we're just going to wander around. So a lot of our enemies sort of do this same behavior. Well, they will try to use their ability, and then when they're done with that, they're just sort of going to make a move. They're going to move somewhere random. Yeah, so wander and chase are like very common core types of behaviors that lots of things share, and that's why we have sub-behaviored them out, so that we don't have to keep re-implementing those little tree snippets all over the place. We can just have a core set of them. I realize we are forgetting one thing though, in that we have to have... Oof, this is gonna get a little complicated here. I'm just looking over at the footman. So subtrees can take variables, essentially. And the way that you do that is you click on this little exposed public property, which will then... what else do we need here? This is chase. Chase needs a target and an attack range. So we have to go into chase, and we have to make self-owner root target, oops, and attack range public. And what that means is that in the captain, he's able to pass those variables into this subtree. Oh boy, this is getting confusing. Is this too confusing, G? I can't
Uh, it'll be good to rewind and watch again.
tell. Okay, so we're going to pass in those variables. I don't want to get too into what all this means, but in order for this to work, this is all necessary. Attack range, okay. And unfortunately, Wander has the same issues. Wander has self-owner root. Easy. So we go into our Wander and we make self-owner and root public. And then we pass those in when we are referring to it as a subtree. So many clicks. Okay. I think we're ready. Fingers crossed. Who's so confused right now? Game is complicated. Like, there's a reason we haven't documented all this stuff, is because it's a lot of complexity to try to document. But that's why I want to continue to do these mod streams, because this is going to be a form of documentation. Definitely a little confused. Me too. Pumba's not confused. He's run the gauntlet already. He has done the trial by fire, and he has delved into all this stuff himself, which is awesome. Okay, is our boy gonna do anything? Oops, that's not our boy. Oh, look at that. He's wandering, he's chasing, he's swinging very slowly. Beautiful. Come get me. Oh, he's got armor too. Hang on, let me turn my... Where's my enemy health bar? Oh, how come he doesn't have a health bar? That's something we should look at. All right. This is a great start. I'm excited. G, are you excited?
Yeah, good progress.
This is the miracle of making video games. You get to see things come alive. Okay, so some things I want to fix about this guy. He's got, so his attack is backwards. If you notice, like his sword goes like south to north, but the slash that comes out is the wrong way. And I know how to fix that. We go into his attack animation, and instead of hit 1, we're going to do hit 2. And this means a counterclockwise swipe is going to appear, I think. Maybe. We'll see. I also want to give him a little bit more reach, because it seems a little wimpy. Like that slash is coming out like kind of right on top of his sword, and I think it should come out in front of his sword. So we're going to go into his stat module, and we're going to give him like, let's see what high reach does. That may be way too much, but we'll see. We can tune that up a little bit. This guy is taking a little longer than I thought, but that's okay. I was hoping to get to giving him a new ability, but we might want to save that for next time so that we can leave some room for Q&A. I don't know. Let's see how this goes. What does high reach look like? Okay, a little better. Still not like perfect. I kind of want that arc to come out, like, you know, make this dude really got a lot. Like, look how big that sword is. That sword is bigger than me. Let's see what very high reach does. Very high? Is that crazy? You notice he has all the footman sounds too. That's one big feature that the mod system is currently lacking, is the ability to add your own modded sounds. I know it's a lot. I know adding audio and sprites are probably some of the hardest things for modders to do. But good news, I think I found a way for us to let you add your own audio to the game without too much difficulty. So look for that in a future version. Oh, that's good. Look at that. That's a huge swipe. Okay, a little slow though. A little slow. So there's two ways to fix that. If you want him to just swing faster, you can come into his animation data object, and you can just flat out make the attack animation run at a higher FPS. So let's go from 8 to 12 and see what happens. So 50% faster. No, you know what? Let's double it. This dude is going to be extremely aggressive. Or harder to dodge, I hope. Oh, I really wanted to get to his secondary ability though, because it involves the shield. Not that footmans don't have shields, but this dude has a really chunky shield that's just begging to be used. Yeah, that's better. Okay, let's do a little bit more stat tweaking. We're going to lower his think time. This is a really clutch stat. This sort of controls the how much time he spends. Oh, it already is pretty low. Let's go very low on the think time, and I want to lower the. Yeah, that's probably good enough. Let's go look at his behavior to just show you what think time does a little bit more clearly. So again, reading this tree from left to right, he's going to try to use his ability. That is, if it's not on cooldown, which it might be sometimes. He's going to chase you once he finds the target. He's going to activate the ability to swing at you. And then once all that's done, he's going to sit in his think time. So he's going to wait for a value equal to his think time stat. And that makes him just sort of sit there for you to take some swings at him. But the lower that is, the faster he's going to get back up and start swinging on you again. Okay, great question. Think time is not actually used anywhere in the engine. It is only a stat available for you to use in your behavior if you want to. You don't have to. But the exclamation mark that appears above his head is what's called his telegraph time. So this determines how long, like he will kind of flash red. He'll get like a red outline, and he'll get one of those exclamation marks again. And the color of that, you guys probably know this, is dependent on whether or not you can stagger him or not. So if you hit him during a yellow exclamation mark, you can knock him out of the attack. If it's red, I think you cannot knock him out of it. Anyway, let's show that stat too. We can go into his stat module. If you want to add a new stat that you don't see in the list here, you have to click this show default button, and this will show you every stat in the game. And then you find the one you're interested in, and again, kind of like with modules, you hit the plus button, and this will let you override it. So we're gonna give him a 0.1 telegraph time. This should make him like a lot harder to dodge because you have far less time to get out of the way once he's decided to swing that sword. This is one of the major stats that we mess with in endless mode, because if you want your enemies to be more aggressive, you lower their think time, you lower their telegraph time, you up their animation speeds. Yeah, and as you guys have seen, if you've gone anywhere in endless mode, things get really fast and aggressive, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty good. He's still waiting a little too long for my taste between the attacks, but whatever. It's all good. He's doing some weird jittery animation stuff that I don't quite know what is causing it, but I don't even know if you guys can see that on the stream. Yeah, the game has tons and tons of stats, and that's just because really, at the end of the day, a stat is just a way to store a value on an entity that then you can modify. So we do often just invent like stupid little niche stats that are used for like one thing and one thing only, but they're still considered stats so that they can be modifiable. They're just not like what players think of as stats. Oh, you know another thing we should do, G? I can't hit tab and open up my journal until I have the journal, right? But if I'm in mod,
are we not? I thought the
practice
practice
mode.
room set that up.
Practice mode
Interesting.
within our core editor does, but practice.
Oh, that's
practicing
okay.
a mod does not auto grant you the journal, but it should.
That's probably why you don't have health bars either. You're missing glasses.
Oh my god, that's a great point. I was worried that it was something deeper. Let's test that out. Captain. Yeah, there we go. Good thinking. Ah,
Okay, yeah,
interesting.
that would
So
be nice to have though.
works when you test encounter, but does not work when you test mod, according to Pumba. So we'll get that fixed up, because having your access to your journal is really, really handy, so you can look at your stats. Yeah. There's 3 or 4 stats unique to the skull orbiters that don't get modified at all. You're probably talking about like orbit speed and orbit distance. Those guys definitely do get modified by things like Mortar. Mortar will modify his orbit speed, orbit distance as he like moves his orbs back and forth. Yeah, it's complicated. Okay, so that's pretty good. I feel like there's enough to do with the captain here that I might want to split him into like a 2-parter. Maybe the next mod stream we'll get back together and give him his shield ability. So just to walk you guys through what I was thinking for that, we go back to his animations and look at his attack 2 animation, he hits his shield against his sword, and I want him to like shout. This is like a shout move, so he's going to like give off some sort of VFX. So this would be a good idea for a good chance for us to test the visual effects system to see if you can add one of those through mods. It's going to do like a radius, of energy or of audio, and any enemy in that radius is going to get buffed. So damage increase, movement and speed increase. Uh, just become fearless and take less damage, or we'll come up with some cool stat modifications for that move. But I wanted this guy to be, give off like a rallying shout type of ability to buff other footmen and priests and stuff around him. So anyway, since we're already a little above an hour, I think we can save that for the next mod stream, which will be great. Okay, any questions about the captain thus far? I know there's some rough edges and some confusing stuff we went through, but we will sort that stuff out as best we can in future versions of Anvil, just to make life easier for you guys. Because we're really anxious to see some people put some really cool new enemies in the game. Oh yeah, another thing we will go over next time is like how to actually get this guy in the game. Sure, we've been playing with him in test mode, but there's a very easy way to like put him in the dungeons or put him in the sanctum. Wherever you'd expect to see an enemy like this, you can slot him into the existing game quite easily, and we'll do that once he is in fighting shape. So, any questions about this guy? Before we move on to a little Q&A, if anybody has questions about their own mods, which I'm sure you're way more excited about perhaps than this guy. Yeah, essentially like that. Yeah, you can merge in an enemy list with a base enemy list. It's a lot like a spawn table. So you can kind of select the dungeon's enemy list and then merge in the captain at some sort of drop rate. And put him on squads, if you only want to appear with footmen and priests and crossbowmen, like if you kind of want to keep him like the human guard squad, you can do that too. It's pretty powerful. Okay. Gee, have I missed any questions so far? Are you kind of keeping track here?
Yeah, I think you got them all.
Nice. Yes, so physics, the physics module is a module. This sort of controls... ooh. If you wanted to ice skate, that's an interesting one. There's some pretty tightly controlled like friction settings between the ground and between enemies and players and items. If you wanted to do that, I can think of a way to do it, but it would be pretty advanced, and it would not be possible through the current physics module. So just to take a look at the physics module, this allows you to set the mass of the thing. So this is sort of like his relationship towards the player. Rats are light, for example. If the player is medium, you can just push right through them. The captain is going to feel real heavy. You can't really push him out of your way that much. Just lots of like physics related stuff on here. The size of his colliders, the collision layer that he's on, which determines like what other things he collides with. Yeah, a bunch of really fiddly like Unity physics control stuff here. But no, ice skating would not be similar to float. I think in my mind, ice skating is more of a friction setting, which, like I said, you can't easily do through the physics module currently. You'd have to, just to give you a sight of a preview, you'd have to go define a new prefab for that enemy. I don't want to get into prefabs yet because that's a whole Unity discussion. But if you did go give a custom prefab to this enemy, inside that prefab you could assign a custom physics material to his collider and probably get close to what you want. But creating your own prefab is like level 10 advanced topic. It's very hard. You have to know a lot about Unity. So I would just say for now, just stick with the default prefabs that we provide for different things, and you should be able to get pretty far. Yeah, physics module is one that definitely needs some documentation because there's a bunch of really fiddly flags inside it that are hard even for us to understand. I'll have to go look at the code a lot to like, what does, I haven't used this flag in like 4 years. What does it do again? Let's go look it up. Oh, okay. Momentum values. Yes. Are you trying to move items between rooms? I saw you asking about this in Discord a couple days ago. That's a whole other thing too, if that is the case. If you want to pull momentum values from an item, you can certainly do that in code. In code, you can query what's called the rigid body component. Everything has a rigid body. This is like a physics term for 3D physics. And that rigid body is what tracks its momentum, its velocity, its angular momentum. There's like a whole bunch of physics related properties of that rigid body. And in code, you can certainly access all of those and modify them, query them, do whatever you want. That's a whole other can of worms that will be some time before I think we get to with these mod tutorials, just because you got to be pretty good and comfortable in C# before you go down that route. I think for the time being, we're going to just stick with how to just use the data system and the behavior tree and, you know, what the different modules do here. But yeah, I mean, 2D projection complicates everything. That's one of the core, I guess, features of UnderMine 2, in that it really is a 2D game, but with a 3D simulation. So you always have to, have a pretty good like intuition around that system to get what you want in a lot of cases. But that one just comes with practice. We can definitely dive into that setup at some point too, but again, that's all pretty advanced stuff outside of just the, you know, what we're envisioning as the basic set of mod, like well-supported mod features, making new enemies, making new items, making new encounters, that kind of stuff. Great questions though. These are getting deep Unity game development topics for sure. My dog is here. You guys want to see Dutch? Hey buddy. He's way bigger than a lapdog, but hey pal. You want to join us? I can't wait to put dogs back in our game. Oh my goodness. My other dog Dylan was in UnderMine 1, but now maybe this guy's going to get to be in UnderMine 2. And he doesn't even know it. Is there a way to specify that an enemy will follow a specific path? Yes, there absolutely is. So let me just walk you through that. Here, let me... might be a little bit faster to switch over to the core game, because again, these are all the same. The tool set that we use in the core game is exactly the same as what we use in Anvil. So I'm going to open up a practice encounter here, and I can add a new track, it's called. This track component lets me define this structure here. And I can put it on a curve. I can say this is linear, this is a Bezier curve. And we can define these really interesting complex tracks. And then you give your track a traverser, it's called. So for example, if I gave him a footman as a traverser, that footman should hopefully, well, you have to maybe do some other stuff to like turn off that footman's behavior or get him to leave the track, but he will just follow this track around, which is pretty nice. We use this for like things like spinners or like mine carts with you know, spiked balls on them, things like that. It's very powerful functionality that we haven't used a whole lot with enemies, but it would certainly be cool to see done. Sorry, Pumba. Yeah, it is useful functionality for sure. Marker, yeah, like you said, markers are also a very good way to do that too. You can just, in the enemy's behavior, you can say like, get me the nearest thing. Marker is just another term for an entity that can just be queried by other systems and just used as like, you know, points in a room for it to move between. A lot of our bosses use really complex marker systems to know where they're going to like move next or where they're going to jump. Cutscenes are typically just scripted with markers also. So we'll like put some markers in the scene. Let me give you an example. I was just working on Nori. So if I zoom in on Nori's arena, I know it's very complicated looking, but you can paint in the tile map editor these little markers, and they just show up as like M1, M3, M2. They all have different colors. And in the behavior of your enemy, you can just say, get me the nearest marker 3, for example, or get me a random marker 3 that's, in my line of movement or more than 5 units away from me or whatever. So this is how Nori jumps around the room. He just grabs all the different marker 3s and he picks one at random and he jumps to it. So it's a nice way to have fixed positions that you can, move in sequence to, or move randomly to, or move nearest, whatever you want to do. And that's how most of our cutscenes work. We'll just have our characters like take their positions on the nearest marker 1 and then move to a marker 3, or toss an item to a marker 4. It's a nice way of just having repeated, consistent results for movement. Also a great question. Cutscenes are quite complicated. Okay. Any, yeah. Once you learn the markers, once you see the matrix and you know where the markers are when you're in the Nori fight, you're like, you get better at the game because you can predict where he's going to move. You know that he can't move. You kind of learn where the safe zones are, to be completely honest. It's very hard to avoid in the implementation, but with enough markers, we can close that gap. Yeah, you can move. You can certainly use it for play movement. So a lot of our cutscenes will take control of the player and move him to a specific marker too, to like, set up for the little scene you're about to see. Very useful stuff. Dutch, what is up, buddy? What are you doing? No, suction is more like again, back to the physics module. Let's swap back to the mod project here. This is like, this gravity well field. So that's a whole another system we could talk about at some point, but gravity wells sort of define more physics related things to like who they pull. Do they pull projectiles? Do they pull just players? Do they pull enemies? Do they pull everything? How far away do they pull it? How fast do they pull it? It's more of just like our own little internal implementation of adding force to different rigid bodies around the gravity well. So yeah, this is like those suction traps in the halls. This is like Cruciferous and Celt's roars that can do negative suction, I guess pushing away, that kind of stuff. It's not the most fully featured system in the game, but it's one that I would like to see get some more usage for sure. All physics based though. Okay, let's do like, if anybody has one more question, who gets the last question, and then we're going to wrap this up. But like I said, we're going to do a part 2. I'd love to do that maybe in a week or two. If people are still around during the holidays, I guess that's getting a little close to Thanksgiving, but we can make that work. We'll finish up our captain, and then we will. Yeah, I'd really like to hit like the major topics. I want to do an enemy. I want to do an item or two. I want to do an encounter. We could do a cutscene. Like we pretty much, like I said, everything that the game can make is moddable, and to have at least a walkthrough VOD of all of those is kind of the goal in my mind. How do you do the space scene in demo location of the chapel? Demo location, what do you mean? Like when you first encounter the emissary in the sanctum? Or you mean his room inside the lobby? I guess maybe that's, or inside the hub. Is that the chapel? Back in the demo. I still don't quite understand what you're getting at. Like the UnderMine 2 demo that we did for Steam Next Fest? I don't remember the specifics around that. Do you, G?
I don't either. Was it maybe the trailer where they're like falling down in the pit looking thing?
I need to see a screenshot of that. I just cannot remember, man. I'm sorry. That seemed like such a long time ago. It's such a busy time for us. Yeah, we've been talking about wanting like a space field background for some boss fights or things like that, but I don't remember that we ever actually did that. Maybe we did. A lot of our like special looking rooms are just nothing more than like a really like Cortland will paint a really cool backdrop for them. That all kind of got started on the Din fight in Undermine 1 with like a really cool like eclipse happening in the background, like a really interesting parallaxed background. So anyway, sorry man, I'll go refresh my memory on what you're talking about and drop some lore into Discord. All right, that's you can get down. Okay, yeah, Pumba, we will eventually get to scripts and custom nodes. Those are hand in hand. I feel like if you're going to write a script, you should write a custom node for your own behaviors because it's possible to mod mods. I mean, a modder could create a mod that is just more scripts for other modders to use, and I think at that point we'll really get some interesting things happening. So, okay. Well, thanks everybody. I hope this was useful. I hope you got a good overview about like how to get a mod off the ground and how to get it cooking. We will keep going here. I mean, the best way to see what other modders are doing, I guess, is to just look on the Steam Workshop. You won't be able to see how their mods are implemented by doing that, but you'll at least be able to see what people have created. And then, yeah, just I think most of our modders. This was kind of the intention around having Anvil in beta for a while with the beta code that you need, just to try to get more modders into Discord first, so that we could all talk together and everybody could start to learn from each other and exchange files and information. But now that it's public, that's less likely to happen. I think people just might be making mods on their own. I don't know yet. But anyway, yeah, talk amongst yourself in Discord. Put your heads together. I would love to see a modder team assemble, and there's no reason you can't all work on the same mod together if somebody brings different strengths to the table. That's how we did it, and that's how we made UnderMine. So yeah, my last piece of advice is to put your mod into version control. Get it on Git. The last thing you want is to put a bunch of time and development into your mod and then lose those files and not being able to back them up or version them or any of that kind of stuff would be not good. So yeah, take it seriously. All right, everybody. Thanks again for joining. This was a lot of fun. I can talk forever about Anvil. I love it. It's a great tool. Very proud of what we've built here, and I'm really excited for people to continue to use it. So, all right, we'll schedule another one of these, and we'll finish up our captain. So, thanks everybody. Thanks Alex for joining.
Yeah, thanks. That was great.
See you guys later.